everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Plant Powered Dog Podcast. I'm really honored today to speak with someone who I really admire, and I know that so many others of you do as well, Dr. Arielle Griffiths. Dr. Arielle, as she is often called, has worked as a GP veterinarian for 30 years, and over the years, she grew increasingly concerned with the obesity epidemic facing our companion pets. After completing every nutrition course possible, Dr. Arielle turned herself vegan and their family dog, Ruff. This was her introduction into the fascinating world of sustainable pet foods. Dr. Arielle is now a passionate advocate of a kinder, healthier way to feed our dogs that benefits our planet and our farmed animals. The changes she sees in the health of dogs that transition to a plant-based diet astound her on a daily basis. And you can see more about Dr. Arielle at Just Be Kind Dog Food, and I will post the link so that you will know where to find her. So Dr. Arielle, welcome so much. I'm so honored to have you with us today.
Oh, I feel the same, Diana, talking to you. I feel humbled talking to you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And we have so much in common, and I love talking to you on and off interviews. So let me just sort of start and if you can tell people a little bit more about your background and, how you went through this transition. I know that a lot of people are in the same situation where they want to feel confident that they can get their dogs off of a meat-based diet. And here you are, a veterinarian. So, let's tell them.
Yes, absolutely. Well, my first thing I have to say is if I can do it, anybody can do it. Because if we rewind 5 years, I had no idea that my life would go down this path whatsoever. I grew up in South Africa, and I have a French mother, and my entire life was spent eating French South African foods, which is a lot of meat, a lot of barbecues. Every night I would have my Greek yogurt, and I love my cheeses. And so veganism was never part of what I did. I went to vet school, and you just do what is seen to be what you're taught, really, what your parents teach you, what your school teaches you. And what I learned at university is, obviously, when you go to vet school, you learn that all animals are, you've got production animals, you've got horses, and you've got small animals. And that's entirely what you learn. You learn more about the nutrition of a cow than you do about the nutrition of a dog. And it was working as a vet, it was 6 years ago now, that I had one day where I had 4 animals to put to sleep. In that one day, I always work as a GP vet, so I'm always the one who sees the animals. I'm not around the back doing the operations. I hate sticking needles and doing procedures on animals. I'd much rather talk to owners, and I love that bond people have with their pets. But on this particular day, there were 4 animals that I had to put to sleep for obesity-related reasons, like the enormous Labrador that came into the little consulting room and just flopped on my floor with such bad arthritis and couldn't really stand, or the cat that was so overweight it couldn't groom itself, or cancer-related reasons. And I got home emotionally drained, as I always am, but I just said to my family, that's it, I am going to start slimming pet classes. And so I joined our local Slimming World. I thought, right, this will help me as well to lose weight. And I want to understand how to do it all. But then I thought, gosh, if I'm going to run slimming pet classes, I know nothing about nutrition. So I threw myself into this fascinating world. And that's where it all started for me, because there was one course, it's run by one of the top vet nutritionists in the UK. I actually did her course twice to really cement the information. But everything that I learned made me realize the more plants you added to a diet, the healthier you would be and your dog would be. And I'd always been very inspired by our son. He's a pharmacist. And when he was a young teenager, he came to my husband and I and said, right, I want to go vegan. And my husband and I were really worried. I wasn't worried for his health, but I worried that suddenly he would think about where his food came from, and we don't want our children to worry. But I was in admiration of him. I always thought, gosh, I could never do that. I could never give up these foods that I love so much. But my slimming pet classes just did not take off. People don't want to be told that their pets are fat. It's a bit like going to see your GP doctor and the doctor says, right, your child has to go to the slimming class because your child is fat. So I closed the door on that. But on the day of my 52nd birthday, exactly 4 years ago, I announced to my husband, who's also a vet, I said, right, I'm going vegan, but I'm going vegan to find the perfect diet for Ruff, our little family dog who we just adore. And my husband is a complete perfectionist and a vet, and he does everything right. And he grew up in Zimbabwe, which is also a very high meat-eating African area. And he was just horrified. And he just said, no, you can't do this. And I said, look, so I had so much to prove. So much to prove. Is not only was I changing my entire health, but I was going to take the health of our little family dog, who's a little rescue from Cyprus. We adore him. And that's where my journey started. And I've never looked back. It has been the most eye-opening, life-changing, fascinating journey that it's impossible to even describe. I know you're vegan as well, and you've been on a similar journey, haven't you? And you can't even describe to people how fantastic it feels to do everything right according to your morals, according to how you want to. You have these choices every day of what are you going to eat for your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner. And to make the right choices in helping animals and helping your own health and helping the health of your dogs, it's just the most enlightening journey, I can say. Yes.
It feels good, doesn't it? Yeah, it feels so good. And it reminds me of something that I hear often on social media, which is don't impose your morals on your dog, right? So tell us a little bit, what have you seen health-wise in are people, first of all, have people that you deal with, clients, or are they generally receptive to this? And those who are, and that you've managed to switch over, what are you seeing so that some people can understand that this isn't just imposing morals on our dogs, that when we do this right, it's very, very nutritionally sound?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think as a vet, I think that's been my biggest eye-opener, is you're not imposing, well, we do want to impose these morals on our dogs. In a way, they are our children, really. And we don't want them to have leather leads, and we don't want them to run off and kill a squirrel and bring it back to us with blood dripping from their mouths. We want them to share in.
We don't. Some people do.
Some people do, absolutely. But the ones who have pets to be part of their family, it's not what you don't want them to run off and kill something. It's not part of why we choose to have our pets and love our pets. We want them to share in our love of nature and take them on the walks that we so adore and appreciate nature. So I feel, yes, we do want them in that capacity to share our morals. But the second question the question you asked me is, how do people react? Interestingly, I think because my approach has been to not impose any of this on anybody, I've always waited for people to ask the questions. I've actually stopped doing GP veterinary and I stopped during COVID. I found it just too hard because animals and owners were not allowed into the practice, and they just had to leave their dogs or their cats in my arms, and they couldn't be there. And I found it so emotionally draining that I stopped then. But actually, that's when me helping owners with their feeding their pets properly and healthily just took off. So that's what I just do permanently now. But just speaking to my veterinary colleagues, when I tell them what I do, it just saddens me so much in that they're not open-minded to it at all, because it's something, it's almost seen as a criticism to the way they've done it before. Is all the choices they've been making before have been the wrong ones, and so they're not seeing it in an open-minded way. But yes, I mean, the changes I've seen are just phenomenal. But it's putting aside how fantastic a plant-based diet is for our farmed animals, how incredibly fantastic a plant-based diet is for the planet. Putting that aside, the health benefits to dogs that I'm seeing as a vet, where my entire focus is to do the right thing for the health of a dog. And I can't talk for cats because I haven't concentrated at all on cats. I'm obsessed with the nutrition, a bit like you, Dana. Once we hit our obsession, there's no stopping us. And my obsession is the nutrition of dogs on a plant-based diet, getting it right. But once owners see, I mean, I see it in myself. When I'm plant-based, I can think clearly. I feel healthy. I sleep better. Just everything about it is better. And so we see those same changes in dogs. The weight just falls off when they're given more fibers, those healthy fibers. And you can literally see the weight falling off. And what happens is you then see the dogs being able to walk more. They're able to go and sniff. They're able to get that mental stimulation. So they get their energy back. They get that glow back in their eyes. And the elderly dogs, they lose the cataracts that they're starting to develop, or this doggy dementia just goes, because suddenly you're giving these phytonutrients, these antioxidants that reverses these cataracts. So you can bond for longer with your elderly dog. They can go for more walks with you, and you can exercise those sore, tight joints that when they carry that weight, when they're not feeling well, they just want to sleep, their joints seize up. Their arthritis is so much more. And then dogs that have all these intolerances, and there are so many, all these purebred dogs or dogs that have had problems when they're young, when they've had operations on their intestine or had high doses of antibiotics when they're young due to problems or bacterial problems. They end up with so many problems later on with their immunity, where they cannot have a certain level of protein. They cannot tolerate meat protein, fish protein, chicken protein. And the only diet they can tolerate is a plant-based. And those are my favorite ones, because I'm getting so many of these wonderful pet mummies and daddies that come to me, and they know nothing about vegan nutrition or plant-based nutrition. All they know is that this is the only diet that their dog can have. They've either been recommended it by the vet, or they found my website. They've Googled vegan vets in the UK, found it. Their dog goes on to a plant-based diet. The first thing all of them mention is how soft their dog's fur becomes. That's always the first one. I bet you get that as well. I love that. Our dog has the softest fur ever, like a puppy. And then after that, they mention how suddenly their dog loves the food, whereas before, these hydrolyzed protein diets, they were totally unpalatable. They were still causing such digestive issues. Their dogs still had to have the course of steroids, or else the skin was still a problem. They still had to have the Apoquel, which is full of its side effects. Suddenly they can stop giving that medication. It's completely life-changing. And those are my favorite ones, because those are the ones who start thinking, oh, actually, maybe I should go plant-based myself.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's interesting that you talk about the hydrolyzed proteins. Talk a little bit more, if you could, about that, because I work with a lot of dogs with gastrointestinal issues. And then, of course, the vet will often say, we don't want to put the dog on a plant-based diet, but you need to give your dog this hydrolyzed food. So do you mind explaining a little bit more to people why we really don't find that ideal, especially in the long term?
Yeah, absolutely. So what a hydrolyzed protein diet is is it's a diet that is made by the big pet food companies, the Purina, the Hills, the Royal Canin. They all have what we call these prescription diets that are sold in veterinary practices, specifically for dogs that suffer from intolerances to protein, and it's mainly meat protein or chicken protein that they suffer from. So what these companies do is they take this protein and they hydrolyze it, which means they break it down into tiny little particles called amino acids. These amino acids, which then they say they're not, that the dog then should, its immunity shouldn't react to this protein. But what you've got is you've got a highly processed meat-based diet. And one of the companies, I'm not going to mention the names, but one of the companies actually takes chicken feathers and breaks down chicken feathers as part of the diet. It does say on the side, it says chicken, what is it? Chicken byproducts, it says, hydrolyzed chicken byproducts. And it's actually just the feathers. And if you look at the protein level of these foods, they're incredibly low. So a dog cannot be maintained on these diets indefinitely. They have to go on it. They're very expensive, first of all, because they're so highly processed and have all these broken down. One of the big companies, I'm not going to mention the names, they actually just add pure sugar. If you look at their ingredients, the fifth ingredient is just pure sugar. You can imagine a dog eating this, what it's going to do to their teeth, what it's going to do to their endocrine hormones. You don't want your dog to stay on that. So they do this with babies in China, because the Chinese tend to be intolerant to milk. We should all be intolerant to milk, really, because
except baby cows and goats.
Except baby cows, absolutely. That's right. So none of us should actually have the enzyme lactase as adults to digest, and our dogs. But dogs suffer badly from dairy intolerances. But sorry, I'm distracting. But babies in China are actually fed hydrolyzed milk protein because of this intolerance. But 60% of the babies still react to this hydrolyzed protein, and the same is seen in dogs, is 60% will still react to this hydrolyzed protein. So what we've got, a top nutritionist in the UK, a lady called Dr. Sue Patterson, who in 2018 she realized, as a dermatologist, and she began importing a food from Italy that's actually made by vets in Italy, and a dermatology company in Italy, which is a vegan diet. She began importing it as a dermatology diet, as an alternative to a hydrolyzed protein diet. It's still sold now, and it's a fantastic diet. It's extremely palatable, because when you compare hydrolyzed protein, unpalatable, very processed, dogs do not like it at all, and they still react. And then you've got these pure ingredients, these pure plant-based ingredients, with none of the, and I know you mentioned this so beautifully in your book, Diana, is bioaccumulation of toxins. Because when you think about it, meat-based foods, whether they're hydrolyzed or just normal meat-based dog foods, they will contain the byproducts of the meat-based industry. And these byproducts are the excretory organs of the animals, the cows, the sheep, the pigs. And excretory organs, livers and kidneys, is where all the toxins accumulate in the body of these feedlot animals. And these feedlot animals are kept in such cramped environments. They're pumped full of, well, if it's not antibiotics, it's going to be growth hormone promoters or antiparasitic medication. And it'll all accumulate in these organs. And it's these very organs that are fed to our dogs in meat-based dog foods. Even raw fed, you're going to be buying liver and kidneys. You're not going to be buying the pure steak. So you're going to be giving these toxins to your dog, which your dog then has to process through their liver, their kidneys. If they're elderly, it puts such a strain on the kidneys, such a strain on their liver. But if you take the pure plant-based ingredients straight from the source, where these herbivores are getting their proteins from, every plant contains proteins, you're getting none of these toxin buildup in the body of your dog. So there's no comparison. So that's why dogs that are then have these gastric issues, these skin issues, these intolerance issues, they put onto a plant-based diet, especially if it's fresh whole food and not processed, the changes I'm seeing blow me away every time. It takes a lot to convince these pet mummies and daddies that they actually have to try it. They're very resistant to it because their vets have just gone down the hydrolyzed protein route. And it's hard because it's taking a step into the unknown. But thankfully, with your book, with all the wonderful research that Professor Knight is doing and Dr. Dodd in Canada, I mean, the research, and now we've got Illinois University's done research on fresh diets. We've got more and more information for vets to absorb and take, and so thankfully I remain enormously positive that we are at the cusp of a turning point. If I, as one vet, can see these changes, the thousands of vets there will also see these changes when these foods start becoming mainstream in veterinary practices. They have to, because we can't keep feeding our pets the way we have been, for sustainability issues, but also for their health. We cannot keep supporting big pharma and big pet food corporates, which is basically what we're doing. Even these enormous raw food companies now have become so enormous and so wealthy that they've actually formed enormous corporates. And again, so they've got the most advertising, they've got the most exposure, but we can't keep being supporting these, because it's the harm that we're doing to with
and
those.
supporting the cruelty, right? Yeah, so I actually had read something that you posted, which I found really intriguing, which was a study showing how these raw meat diets, people often don't think they cause problems, but that they're actually promoting antibiotic resistant bacteria, right? Is that you had, yeah, so even just the raw meat in itself.
So that, just going back to that, it was during COVID, it was 2020, in April 2020, when all the countries had shut down. We'd all shut down. But every year in Paris, they have a collection of all the scientists who release important papers. And they would get together in Paris and discuss all these important papers. And in April 2020, everything was shut down, but there was one paper they had to release because it was so important. And it was this study that showed that dogs fed a raw meat diet were exposing their owners and themselves to antibiotic-resistant E. coli bacteria, which means that if the owner or if the dog was to fall ill with this bacteria, there was no antibiotic to kill this bug, which meant that if this person or this dog was suffering from some other form of immunosuppression, they would die. There was nothing. And this actually, why they had to release this, because it was so important, is this is our next pandemic, is if we don't have the tools in place to kill off a bacteria. And somehow this incredibly important paper has just been buried under the advertising of these meat-based raw food companies. They seem to even have gotten more and more powerful since COVID, which is terrifying, absolutely terrifying for all our health, for the dog and planet and human health.
Well, it's very interesting. That was something, that I actually hadn't thought of before. Was, people say, well, it's fine, dogs naturally have these bacteria in their digestive systems anyway, but we don't think about all of this shedding and how they're promoting the resistance, it's the consequences, the negative consequences are just so far reaching, that I think we're going to continue to discover even more health consequences, in addition to, of course, animal welfare and environmental consequences. So you see all of these benefits yourself, and you're convinced. What do you say to the people that, and a lot of vets included, continue to drill into the dogs are carnivore story? Dogs have shorter digestive tracts than people, or dogs' teeth aren't the same as people. How do you respond to that? I'm curious.
No, absolutely, and possibly in a very similar way to you do is dogs are not carnivores. They belong to the order Carnivora, but in this order Carnivora, we have the carnivorous grey wolf, we have our omnivorous domestic dog, and we have our herbivorous panda bear. Now, the panda bear belongs to the order Carnivora. It has the same dentition, the same sort of teeth as our dog does, but all they live off is bamboo shoots and leaves. Equally belonging to this order Carnivora is a very shy animal, which I've actually treated before in a zoo in the UK. It's called an aardwolf. It's a funny looking little spiky animal, almost going extinct, lives in Africa, nocturnal. All they feed off is termites, is two species of termites. They've got a long tongue and they lick these termites in the nighttime. They too belong to the order Carnivora, and they too have the same looking set of teeth as our dogs do. So what we have, and I could go on. There's another dog that lives in South America. That it's a fascinating. It looks like a mixture between a fox and a wolf, and it lives off solanum, which is a type of wolf apple, and it teaches its young to forage when they're born, because they are primarily herbivorous. So going back to our domestic dog, there are published studies that actually show that 3,000 years ago, and there's this pit that they found in an hour out of Barcelona. They found the bones of 38 dogs that were buried in this pit. And there's a whole published paper on it, a lovely lady called Sylvie with a lovely Spanish name. And they found, doing carbon isotope dates, not carbon dating, but checking carbon isotopes, they found that these dogs lived 3,000 years ago. So they would have lived at the time of Stone Age man, where man would have started with agriculture and started keeping livestock. And these dogs would have been used to guard the livestock and guard their crops. And they went even further, as they did further isotope tests on these dogs' bones, and they found that more than half of these dogs had carbon isotopes that were similar to the animals, the herbivorous animals they were guarding. So these dogs were actually primarily plant-based, a bit like the ancient Phoenicians. They also were primarily plant-based for their strength. And these dogs would have been fed on millet, which is one of the main grains grown in that region. It would have provided them with instant energy to actually go off and chase the animals. But also what there's studies done at the University of Uppsala, I love that name, in Sweden, is they found that, and these studies were done quite a long time ago, is that the genes of dogs have changed, and they have far more genes, that the whole genetic isotope has changed, the DNA has changed of domestic dogs over the years. So they actually have to have 50% of their diet as carbohydrate, whereas a grey carnivorous wolf has 1.5% of its diet as carbohydrate. So they have actually adapted to digesting carbohydrate. And I mentioned this in my masterclass that I've got, is they found that dogs have more amylase in their saliva than horses do. How remarkable is that? You think of what a horse eats, but actually the way dogs have changed and adapted. So no, dogs are not carnivores. They are opportunist omnivores that have just lived off whatever man has fed them, and man has only ever fed them scraps over the years, and so that's why they can cope so beautifully with 100% plant-based diet, just as we can. We should not. We are primarily primates, aren't we? We should all be plant-based. We've got.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. That's one of the best descriptions I've ever heard about somebody, addressing that carnivore issue. I think that was just beautiful, and I hope everyone listens to that. So that's just really great. Yeah, and yeah, dogs have grown up with us, if you will, over tens of thousands of years and evolved genomically, and even their microbiomes are changing and have changed to get further away from, the wolf ancestor and more like their current families, the humans.
And
So
and
it's, yeah,
absolutely, and I mean that is a whole new topic, the gut microbiome, and we're only just hitting the surface with us and with our dogs. But research has been done in the UK showing that certain regions of the UK, we share almost the same gut microbiome with our dogs in our families, and there's certain regions where the gut microbiome differs, whether it's to do with the amount of chlorine in the water, or whether to do with the pesticides that's used on the crops in that area, or the soil type. We all share in similar gut microbiomes, and the secret to me of plant-based feeding health is all down to the gut microbiome in every capacity. It's that, to me, is the reason why dogs that have such terrible allergies and allergic conditions, and people as well, who then go on to a primarily plant-based diet or 100% plant-based diet, they can cure those autoimmune conditions in dogs and in humans, because of the gut microbiome having that right level of nutrients that lines the villi of that digestive tract and feeds the good gut bacteria who just want to thrive. Like all species, they want their food, and they get it from the fiber that we feed them. And because mammalian enzymes can't break open the fiber and get these polyphenols and these wonderful antioxidants, but the good gut bacteria can, you then have the perfect environment for these good gut bacteria to make their food, which is short-chain fatty acids, which have the most amazing effects in the body of our dog, in allowing the good nutrients in and stopping the toxins from going in. So you just give your dog the best form of nutrition by feeding the good gut bacteria, really.
And that's right. And like you said, what does that? The fiber. Yeah, that's what they love to munch on, those bacteria, right?
Absolutely. And they just want to thrive. They want the right food, they want the right environment, they want the right pH. And by giving them that fiber, you've giving them that, and they're going to repay you or repay your dog by fully supporting their health and allowing the vitamin E and the selenium and the amino acids and the zinc to be absorbed properly, so you get just the right level for their skin.
So what are some of your favorite plant-based foods for dogs?
Well, I mean, our little Ruff has his absolute favorite, the one food that makes his pupils dilate. And you hear me rustling the packet when I open the fridge, is tofu. Absolutely,
my favorite.
Yeah. I mean, it's mine and his, and our favorite lunch that we share in together in the middle of the day is I just fry up some tofu. I just scramble it, fry it up with some nutritional yeast, and that's it. He just adores that. It's packed. We've got it packed full of vitamin B. We've got all the amino acids, and obviously the ancient Chinese were so clever in making tofu, weren't they? And it's the tofu nagari that's the important one, that lovely solid one made with I think it's magnesium chloride, which comes from sea salt. Because you're not just getting those amino acids, you're getting the magnesium chloride that our dogs need as well, which is so tofu would be top of my list. But quinoa, I'm just mad on quinoa. I just love quinoa. I never used to until I went vegan. I used to think, oh gosh, it's tasteless, but I love the cunts. I love the little pop that it has, and you mix it. Well, for me, I just mix it with a bit of olive oil and salt and pepper. For Ruff, he would have it just plain. Sometimes a little bit of soy sauce, but all mixed in with the tofu and the nutritional yeast. But and these are just snacks. These are not his main meals. His main home cooked.
Well, and if you could talk a little bit about that, I have used, I have the pleasure of working with many people in the UK and designing diets for their dogs. And I absolutely love your product, which I would love you to talk a little bit more about, and the importance of making sure that any long-term diet is nutritionally balanced. So tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about how you came to develop um, your product and how that works with plant-based diets.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, it all really started with me having this absolute desire, this obsession to find the right diet for Ruff from the word go. I just thought there's no ways I want to harm him in any way. And so I once I'd done all my research in the UK and realized that the top vet nutritionists in the UK, they knew more, I knew more than they did. They were referring me to the US to buy veggie dog supplement, and I just thought this is not good enough. I don't want to, it's too far
Right,
importing. And
right.
so I turned to Germany, where I was put in contact. I met the wonderful owners of Veg Dog, the company, the two lovely ladies. And I began importing their food. I began importing their supplement. I kept it in my garage at home, and I started. But I
Which
worked
is different than Dog. In the US, we have Dog. In Germany, you
exactly
have
a
Dog.
veg
Yep,
dog,
just so they
veg
know.
dog,
Yep, yep.
exactly. And they have the all-in Velac supplement, which I began importing, and their food called Green Crunch, which I began importing and selling just on a very small scale. And as I say, I had it in my garage at home. But I worked with the German vet nutritionists who, like you, would have do everything absolutely correctly, and this supplement, and we formulated some diets that because the recipes they were recommending were really for German owners, I wanted some for UK owners, so it could be ingredients they recognized. So I formulated some really lovely recipes, and it was all going fine, and I was slowly building interest in people in the UK, very slowly, because I was learning along the way. And then we had Brexit, and suddenly I couldn't import it anymore. And I was devastated, because I just thought, right, what do I feed my dog now? And so I looked at what we've got. Bramble, the dog who lived in the UK, lived in the 50s and 60s, who was fed a organic home-cooked diet by her owner, and she was in the Guinness Book of Records in 2002 because she lived till 25. So her owner and Heritage had put down all the ingredients that she was feeding, and I thought, gosh, there's got to be something in this. So I made up her diet, which she said was balanced. I cooked it exactly as it should be, and I sent it. It cost me £2,500, but I sent it to a laboratory to have it analysed for every single mineral or nutrient needed. And my nutritionist, who I work with in the UK, who supplies my supplement, my Just Be Kind supplement, he came back and he said, oh wow, he said, we need to add in lots more here. This is not balanced at all. Which was such an eye-opener, because sadly we have so many thousands of people following this recipe, thinking they're getting it right, they've got this balance, they're going to have their dog live till 25. But the reality of it is what this wonderful Anne Heritage was doing, and she was a pioneer in the field of vegan dog food, is she was only feeding her dogs once a day. She never ever chose anything commercial. She only ever chose organic ingredients, and she made sure that her dog had a little bit of absolutely everything. But that's not a reality for our dogs now. Is our dogs are fed treats, they're fed twice a day, some of them get fed 3 times a day like my dog. And we've got to, and we can't always get organic, and we can't always find every single ingredient. So it's so important to supplement, and that's where the Just Be Kind supplement came about. So there I was swearing about Brexit, but actually it made me develop something that I'm so passionate about, is owners like you, they've got to get it right, because then what I still get is people contacting me and saying, oh, I haven't been using supplement, I've been using this recipe, and I've had a little dog that was such pain with the lack of calcium and vitamin D, and she had to carry her little poodle everywhere. And as soon as it went onto a balanced diet, it's been absolutely fine. And so many like that. So yes, it's the importance.
And we'll put a link to that and to your supplement for those in the UK. And I appreciate your saying that, because that's something that we really have to counter, that misinformation that only an ill dog would need supplementation. There are just certain nutrients that they really can't get in enough quantities or at all without the supplementation. And as you said, maybe in a perfect world, we don't live in a perfect world, right? So even the soil is nutritionally, depleted these days.
Absolutely, in certain areas, that's right. And it's impossible to get it 100% right for us as humans on a vegan diet. We have to supplement our vitamin B12. I mean, just that, for example, is a huge one you have to supplement in dogs, because they say, oh no, but you get vitamin B from the soil. But or from animals, feedlot animals, even feedlot animals have to be fed vitamin B12, because there's so little vitamin B12 in the soil, or they don't even eat soil-based, these poor feedlot animals. So yes, and that's just one of them. And they've got to have vitamin D3, and they've got just
vitamin D and selenium, and the copper,
and the,
all of these nutrients. And that's the key, is we want to make sure, the key is always nutritionally sound, no matter. And of course, as you know, they've done studies on people who feed homemade raw meat diets that are very imbalanced. So it's very important that people understand we're not just talking, plant-based diets, are imbalanced and they need a lot of supplementation. I did meat-based diets for many years before I turned, vegan and doing just plant-based, and they all had supplementation, because we really need to make sure that we are meeting those, requirements as they're set. Obviously, nobody has a monopoly on what an organism needs to thrive, but we do want to at least be sure we're meeting, the regulatory recommended daily allowances. So
absolutely.
I so appreciate your being with us. Are there any final tips or things you would like to tell people who are, curious about this?
Is just be brave, and just try, and just trust your instincts. Just know that it's possible, because everybody will talk you down, your family, your friends, your vet, but just trust your instincts that it's not right to have dripping meat in your fridge. Feed yourself plant-based and feed that to your dog, when all the studies are pointing to the health of animals. All the studies, there are no studies done on raw food diets that point towards a health, but there are more and more and more. And I spoke to Professor Knight this week, and he said that he's bringing out more studies this year as well, which is just fantastic. So just know that you've got the science behind you. Try to ignore big pharma, try to ignore big corporate advertising, and just go with your heart, with what really feels right, because everything about it is right in my books with feeding plants. Everything about it is right. We're just doing the right thing by our animals, by our planet, and in a cruelty aspect. So be brave.
Yes, and I would just add too to everything you said, which is just amazing. Also, ignore the naysayers who don't have the scientific information and the facts, and are still, just putting their faith in old, outdated myths. There can be a lot of pressure out there, and you and I, we just always encourage people to just stay strong and go with what is the right thing for the animals and for their health, for our dog's health. So thank you. Thank
Oh,
you. Oh my gosh, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. I can't
oh,
wait I know that everybody is going to just love watching this and that you're admired worldwide. So thank
oh,
you
and you
so
the
much.
same.
Oh,
Absolute
thank
pleasure, Dad.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for being with us. And you've given so much of your time. And everybody, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Plant Powered Dog podcast with Dr. Arielle Griffiths. And we will see you later.